I am a surgeon! I am a surgeon! I am a surgeon!
So, as a lot of you may know, I dislike The Good Doctor a lot. This show is probably one of the most blatant examples of a piece of media providing harmful stereotypes about autism to wider audiences, while also having some large flaws with its writing overall and much of the way it approaches storytelling. The Good Doctor actually just ended this year back in May, thankfully, but seeing as how it's one of those shows that got widely popular out of nowhere and was able to run for 6 seasons while also providing harmful stereotypes and mediocre writing, much like another series I've talked about, I figured it was time to finally discuss this show and just what makes Shaun Murphy, the lead character in this show, such a non-character. This is not a character at all, and we're going to be talking about why today. There's a lot to unpack here, so I hope you enjoy my analysis of what this show, and more specifically what the writing behind Shaun Murphy is doing incorrectly. But before we begin, be sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell for notifications if you want to be notified when I upload a new video. Share this video with a friend as well if you think they may like it, and also consider joining my Discord too, where people often suggest the next thing for me to cover here on YouTube. But anyway, on to today's video. So in order to explain what The Good Doctor does wrong, it's important to explain how the show came to be to begin with. The Good Doctor actually has its origins in South Korea, where the show initially began life. The Good Doctor in South Korea stars a young savant man who ends up becoming a surgeon at a local hospital and is able to help those around him by using his unique look at things. Actor Daniel Dae Kim happened to stumble across this original series and decided to try and bring it over to the States by securing the international rights. He initially pitched the show to CBS, but they turned it down, which, you know, is fine because they had their own bad autism representation going on anyways. Oops. After this, Kim teamed up with Sony Television and also David Shore, most famous for being the showrunner for House MD, a popular medical drama on Fox, to pitch the show to ABC. Keep David in mind for now, he'll come up later. During this time, Disney, of course, who oversees everything at ABC, was experiencing a lot of lows for the network during this time in the mid-2010s, with some long-running shows keeping ABC on the radar like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and Shark Tank, while also having many misfires with its programming, with shows like Imaginary Mary, The Muppets, and Downward Dog all being cancelled almost as soon as they were greenlit. Because of this, Disney was on the prowl for something that could even bring back a little bit of life into ABC, so when they were pitched The Good Doctor, they immediately saw an opportunity to capture a very specific audience, aka the same audience who probably watched The Big Bang Theory or Young Sheldon. Oh boy. So with the main production history of this show out of the way now, let's begin to dive into the show as well and what pretty much every episode is like. The show basically takes the same idea the Korean version had by having a savant-type character named Shaun Murphy, played by Freddie Highmore here, that uses his heightened abilities of thinking to figure out the best treatments for various patients in the hospital he works at. The day is almost always saved by Shaun, and all the doctors congratulate him and wonder how they can do this, while Shaun walks around like a robot. Okay, so on paper, this general premise isn't actually terrible in my opinion, minus the robot part anyway. Putting someone on the spectrum in the position of being a doctor, someone trying to save someone else's life, isn't a terrible idea at all, and it could actually help shine a more positive light on autism. The issue here is Shaun is not a good doctor, contrary to what the title of the show would have you believe. He often comes up with rather poor solutions to his patients' problems in many episodes, and also can come off as pretty insensitive and uncomfortable to them too, and even one point in the show just straight up tells a child he has cancer. Like, this isn't really showing a competent autistic character at all, or one people are really gonna root for. If there were some sort of change or development with Shaun, I think this would work a lot better, but instead, pretty much every episode relies on the same formula and has them constantly making the same mistakes. Not only is this failing at writing an autistic character, this is just failing at writing a compelling character at all. As I stated before, that's where an already big problem lies with this show and Shaun himself, is that he doesn't even feel like a character that had any thought put into him. He feels basically like a robot that can't even hardly talk to people. While this can be something that can occur on the autism spectrum, it makes me wonder why he was picked to work as a surgeon in a hospital where he's surrounded by people every day in the first place. If you want to shine a light on this area of the spectrum of autism, this is not the way to do it, and definitely not the situation to put this kind of character in. The overall structure of this show and the poor writing especially don't really contribute to any kind of positive autism portrayals here. One pretty notable example, which is likely the most famous thing from this show and something that became very memed on in 2023, is the infamous "I am a surgeon" scene, where Shaun loses his role as a surgeon after running out of an operating room, which, to be honest, is totally fair reasoning to me since he was mid-operation and ran out. He has moved to pathology instead, which I think is actually a good thing here, since it's something where he doesn't have to communicate as much with people, a noted weakness of his, and can still use his medical knowledge and out-of-the-box thinking to help others. This actually would be a good thing for him and possibly add to some development for Shaun as a character, since he might be able to learn to work within his borders of communicating and find new ways to still help people who need it just using other strengths of his. However, he doesn't do that and just goes back and yells at Dr. Han, who was the person who demoted him to pathology after seeing how he fled the operation. Like, why? This show is so bent on having Shaun be a surgeon and be seen as a good doctor that it doesn't even stop to look at him as a character and ask itself, hey, would I want this guy as my doctor? Because as another autistic person, I can sure tell you I wouldn't. Now that's not to say Freddie Highmore is a bad actor. From what I've seen of him in Bates Hotel, he can absolutely pull off a great performance. And he's done that many a time when he's given something to actually work with. But here in just such a distinctly boxed in role that is leaning into so many stereotypes and showcasing so much poor writing overall, he just has nothing to work with really. One particular thing I think it'd be a large reason for this atrocious writing for Shaun in this show is that Disney and Howard Shore, who as I said before, had experience with medical dramas before thanks to House, decided to team up with Autism Speaks for a large portion of the writing of this show. Whoopee. To be honest, I think this explains a lot of why Shaun is written the way he is, because if you know anything about Autism Speaks at all, they sadly do this kind of thing all the time. And perhaps the worst part of this is this kind of thing totally can work if you make the autistic character in question feel like a real character. To give a quick example of a similar role that does this heightened intelligence type thing, but much better, look no further than Okabe Renshiro from the anime Steins Gate.
It's another Steins Gate
reference. Yes, I know, I've talked about this anime a lot before, but it's my favorite and it's widely considered one of the greatest anime ever made, so I'm always happy to discuss it. Okabe is similar to Shaun, interestingly enough, in terms of being in his own sort of world and thinking in his own unique way and applying that to problem solving, while also having limited social skills. A big difference between Okabe and Shaun, however, is that Okabe is written to be an actual character and has legitimate arcs and development he undergoes. One of my favorite examples is the episode of where Okabe is on a date with Ruka, where much like Shaun, Okabe is completely out of his element since he barely knows how to socialize as is, let alone go on a date. However, the way they handle this and the way they are portrayed in the scenario of dating is handled much differently in either show. For Shaun, he is given advice by people to hopefully help out while he's with this girl, but he often doesn't take the advice, which is ironic given he complains to these same exact people later that the date was a disaster in his eyes. Go figure. On top of this, he's just often straight up babied by either the people giving him advice or even his actual date, which is honestly not good and a really bad reflection on them as well. However, looking at Okabe, a lot of the same things do happen to him, but it's handled much differently. He is given advice by Kirisu for dating since he has no idea how to do it on his own, and he does try to take this advice and use it on the date, even though it's hard for him. But the thing that makes this work so much better here is that A, Okabe isn't being babied at all. He's literally just another person on this date with Ruka. And B, while Okabe doesn't really have much of an expertise in socializing with people under neurotypical norms, that doesn't really matter here because Ruka just likes him for being him and all the weird and niche conspiracy theory science fiction things he hyperfixates on. This is in stark contrast to the reason why Shaun's date chooses to date him in the first place, since in her case, the only reason she's even dating him is because she thinks he's a good surgeon. Even though, as stated before, he totally isn't. Ruka actually has a real reason to go on a date with Okabe, and there's a real reason she likes him. It just works so much better here as a result because there's real characterization and real development between these two. As a result, this makes their dynamic work so much better than any dynamics Shaun Murphy could possibly have with his date. The characterization is actually similar, but it's handled so much better. Overall, with The Good Doctor having ended its run this year, I do hope that'll be the last remnant of stereotypes of autism being spread to the mainstream, since, as I discussed in other videos, a lot more shows are popping up now with positive autism representation, which is really important and also just really nice to see. I do hope we continue to see more studios being careful how they portray autism, making less shows like The Good Doctor and more shows like the ones we've been seeing pop up more in the future. I can only hope, but it does look like things are finally turning around. Goodbye, Good Doctor. Hello, Coral the Collector. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you didn't like it, give it a like anyway. If you want to check out all my socials down below, you can see all those down there. And if you want to join my Discord too, where you can communicate with me and others offline, that should be linked down below. And if you want to check out my letterbox, that is linked down below as well. That's where I review movies, oftentimes movies or shows I won't review here on YouTube. So you can check that out too if you want extra content from me. But for now, I've been Noah the Otter, and I'll see you on the otter side. Bye!